Hiya, Dr. Allison JK here with you, wishing you a happy full moon and lunar eclipse in Libra. Libra is my sign. Woohoo! So when I began this year and I was looking at what was coming energetically this year and then pairing it with the astrology to gain a better understanding of perhaps what my intuition was sensing, loads of new possibilities in this year of the dragon, right? You've already gotten that from the previous slew of videos. Where the new possibilities are coming in with this full moon lunar eclipse are in our relationships. And one of the aspects that really seems to be important here is our values and how our values may be changing within our relationships. So I know that relationships can be one of the areas in our lives that cause us to, if we choose to, grow the most, right? Yet relationships are also meant to be offering us joy, safety, comfort, protection, and an ability that helps us, or an environment, a context that helps us express our truest desires with courage and without fear. So the energetics under this full moon lunar eclipse that are happening Monday morning 3 a.m. March 25th in New York time zone, 7 a.m. in the UK, and midnight in LA, Sunday into Monday. I'm really sensing this new possibility realm being welcomed into our relationships. And I know that I just listened to something really interesting, a Gallup poll that they do every year to view who are the countries where the people are the happiest. And Scandinavia's countries, hands down, have it on us around the world. Interestingly, too, in the United States, we fell from the top 10. And that is in great part because of the under 30s and what they're experiencing. And apparently people over 60, if the Gallup poll was presented to the United States, and just included people over 60, we would be in the top 10. Without going into the whys behind that, one overall why is because there is more of, it's not just technology and being on the iPhones, but it's the isolation created from all the gaming that goes on with technology with the under 30s, and the depression and the isolation. And one way, surefire way to come out of a sense of isolation and depression is getting out and mingling and creating new relationships. And I know that I'm still seeing people hitting a stride coming out of what shifted for them in COVID, and learning how, one of the coolest things about this full moon lunar eclipse that I'm sensing is learning how to view the collective, especially if you've been doing this kind of spiritual cleansing, spiritual path clearings to activate more of your latent potential and hook up with all of the unlimited possibilities becoming available in the greater field vibrational backdrop we're living in. One of the ways to be able to really hook up with that is to appreciate that the collective consciousness, the collective, isn't something to resist against or fight against anymore, but rather there are so many people who are choosing their higher self's thought, to listen to their higher self's thoughts and making choices based on their higher self and on the openings and on this sense of positivity and optimism and unity, that they really, whilst there are people who drive like idiots and trigger us, or people who are expressing, aggression and craziness, keeping in mind that in Buddhism, which is the tradition I learned to teach meditation from before I lived in Asia for the decade, and then including that time it expanding, is one of the, if not the most basic tenet, one of the most basic tenets in Buddhism is every human mind is neurotic. Here are the tools with which to work with your own particular flavor of neuroses. And I know that when I was a psychology major, which was my first major in my undergraduate program, I left it because after 3 semesters, because I was aware that they weren't teaching me how to be the happiest, most thriving version of myself and how to share that with others. It was very problem focused, says the author with her first book's title, What If There's Nothing Wrong? And in my continuing education for my personal trainer certification, one of the specialty certifications I got was behavioral change and becoming a specialist in that. And upon those classes I had to take, one of the new realizations I had was that there is a new field since the late 90s in psychology called positive psychology. So this is exciting. And there is, if you look around with the intention to see where this is happening, to see more examples of more unity and of more optimism and of more people shifting into working together and creating new possibilities that help the earth, that help humanity, you can see the goodness of humans' hearts expressing itself even more. So I'm really happy to report that to you, because you can help reevaluate. Again, one of the main aspects under this full moon and solar eclipse is looking at our values and how they may be shifting about what we desire in a relationship. And so recognizing that, like, going out there and mingling more isn't you having to deal with more idiots like you may have once thought, but possibly shifting the perspective to, wow, there are a lot more people open and optimistic and hopeful, and help you yourself, whilst you also contribute to whatever is happening in any group you get involved with. So also another aspect of this time, the influences we're going to be feeling, is the need to come. Libra is all about balance. I mean, its symbolism in the Western zodiac is scales, so it's all about balance. Is coming into balance within our relationships with how much you give and how much you receive, and that these come more into balance. And I know that I'm talking to a lot of you who are following me are like kind, compassionate, loving, caring, even you'd label yourself as spiritual people. And so out of that kindness of your heart, you like to give. And I want to just suggest to you to, in your new awarenesses that you're likely to gain from having watched this video, and have a better understanding and awareness of how best to work with these energies to your advantage under this full moon and lunar eclipse. Another aspect to look at too is, where do you collapse your boundaries when you're in the quest for love? Whether that is you're single and seeking a relationship, or you're in a relationship and the compromises you make, and where you fold on yourself in order to keep the harmony or the love in the relationship, right? So that leads us into another balancing aspect within relationships is, where do you let go of your sovereignty? Because another new aspect that's really coming into possibility and actualization now is, in particular for females, where you've lost your own sovereignty due to the conditioning of what it's like to be in a female body, and what you're supposed to, all the definitions of how you're supposed to be as a woman in a relationship, how much you're supposed to give, the natural intuitiveness and empathicness that the female body's wiring has. And I give so much credit to all of the beautiful divine masculine males and male bodies who are opened and awakened now too, and may be more giving, and may have more of those definitions running of, if I'm going to be this new version of the male and help women elevate beyond the toxic masculinity, then I must be such and such a way. So gaining new awarenesses around where your unconscious and conscious conclusions are around how you're supposed to be in relationship, and where that makes you make compromises, where you fold in on yourself and you give up more of your sovereignty, instead of it having your sovereignty is maintained and sustained in a healthy way while still in relationship. There is so much to be hopeful about, and as each of us elevate, it's such a beautiful aspect from the divine that in this vibrational backdrop, now we elevate 100,000 other beings. It used to be 10,000 with an awakened heart, elevates 10,000 other beings through how we're all interconnected in the greater matrix, or the vibrational backdrop, or the mechanisms of the heart chakra, and how and where we're all connected. And overall, I just really want to help you help yourself move into an even more thriving space within your relationships. And then also to help those of you who may be feeling more isolated or not as optimistic or not as joyous, maybe even depressed. Go out and mingle. Relationships keep us healthy and happy. Again, that was one of the main aspects. Money was the primary aspect looked at, but money isn't responsible for all the happiness. The primary aspect looked at in the Gallup polls going around the world and interviewing people to find out what countries have the happiest populations. Money was definitely a first ruling factor, but it was also social connections. And so I share that with you in the hope that you, with your kind heart, will gain benefits from this full moon lunar eclipse. And also and know that as you get happier and lighter, you are helping others. You don't have to actively be working with somebody depressed. But also, a smile to somebody is nice. And watch your projections, again, in your assumptions and conclusions, because they're doing okay. They're maybe even doing the same thing along the lines that you are. Maybe it isn't so tribal anymore. And I wonder what that would look like. Because we are moving into unity. It's an aspect of this new era. And we're seeing it show up with this full moon lunar eclipse that begins the eclipse season for 2024. Okay, there was a lot in there. You may want to come back in and listen. And for those of you who want clearings and activations to help you with all of this and more, including breakthroughs, because our consciousness is able to be more expanded under eclipses, we're able to gain new awarenesses and make leaps on our spiritual path, and also have breakthroughs. There's also another aspect too of this full moon lunar eclipse around contracts and karma, and eclipses mean to end something, so ending, completing. There's a really strong sign, more than normal with eclipses, for there being some aspects of our lives that need to close so that we can thrive more. So if you want, you can join Activate Your Magic, which is my first tier program. It's under $100 a month, and you can receive the clearings and activations that I just did for folks to be even more aligned and receive the most benefit possible from this full moon lunar eclipse. I'll put the link down below. And what would it look like if you made more choices increasingly that led to more of your thriving? Even if your ego mind wasn't so excited about some of the choices at first and you had to come out of an old habit or pattern. And get yourself support to do that. And I'm glad you're here. And hey, yeah, subscribe, hit the like button, please. And enjoy this full moon lunar eclipse. Blessings. Namaste.